Good evening. It is Friday, November the 11th at about 7:45 p.m. This is Shay Gibson with Weather Flow and Wind Alert bringing you a Chucktown wind report as we head into the weekend. So looking at our surface map, we have this very weak cold front drawn across the southeast region all the way from Texas over. We have very mild troughing from the Gulf of Mexico, but it's very dry air. And so we're not going to see any rain from this. In fact, if we look at GRE on radar, the water vapor imagery, the only rain that I can spot is down here in the northeast Gulf of Mexico. And it looks like we're going to get mist. Here we have this dry pocket of air moving down. The cold front situated right about here along that back line of this upper troughing right here and right across the Appalachian Mountains. That'll be scooting through overnight hours. And we have a chilly north-northeast wind working its way down. We're talking about temperatures probably in the upper 40s to near 50 by the time we wake up in the morning. Things get a little bit cooler tomorrow night, but for right now we're looking at a north-northeast flow working its way down in the early morning hours. So let's take a look at Datascope and take a look at the winds, and you can see the winds are really starting to kind of push down from the Great Lakes down along this area of high pressure around it in clockwise fashion. So as we get down the coastline, we already have a gradient kind of building along the Chesapeake Tower just off of Virginia Beach. We can see it in Long Island, New York, New Jersey. The gradient's starting to pick up there. As we get down towards the Outer Banks, we can see the northerly winds starting to work their way down the coastline, and as time goes on, these winds will pick up. So if we go down to Charleston, we zoom in on our area, we just have a mild northerly wind right now, right around 6 knots in the harbor. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the winds plus gusts. And so not much going on out there tonight. Fairly quiet, pretty smoky day actually. So another thing that this wind direction will do with increases by the morning time is it'll help push that smoke to the south and out of our area. So our air quality should actually improve by tomorrow morning. Now I'm going to pick the north tip of Folly Beach for our forecasting for tomorrow because we're going to see the higher wind speeds there because of land shadowing. We don't see a lot of wind in this area, especially in the harbor. If you get out here in pockets of the harbor on the backside, James Island, you may see some higher winds there, especially Sunrise Park. But I really like to pick north tip of Folly. Northern Island tips seem to do a little bit better on the north-northeast wind direction. I don't think we're going to see that northeast to east-northeast lean because the air temperatures are only going to be in the low 60s tomorrow. We don't have enough warmth or land heating and the sea breeze coupling mechanisms to get that wind to really bend. It definitely is still on the table. It's a very small shot that we get that northeast lean, but I don't think we're going to get that east-northeast lean with heavy increases as we've seen in the past. So looking at the North Folly, let's take a look at the models and see what they're saying. I'm thinking upper teens to low 20s at this point with some higher gusting, and the models are also reflecting this as well. So they're all pretty much in agreement with a really nice build for tomorrow morning, very moderate build up near 20 knots. And sometimes these can be a little bit on the low end, so we look sometimes for north-northeast or northeast wind for the values to be several knots higher. So we could take these models and maybe add just a few knots to get to the low 20s for the morning hours and then backing down to upper teens to near 20 for the afternoon. And like I said earlier, with the north-northeast flow and the cooler temperatures, we may not be able to get that northeast to east-northeast lean along the beaches for onshore flow. I think most of this is going to be offshore, slightly offshore north-north to east, and that's going to do it for the winds for tomorrow. As we get into Sunday, we see the winds lean a little bit more northeast, but they start to fade out as the gradient starts to relax and high pressure settles down to the southeast region. We're talking significantly less, maybe low teens. I'm thinking maybe 10 to 14 knots on Sunday from the northeast with maybe a small bump with a little bit of warmer air. We may have maybe a 12 to 16 knot pop in about midday to early afternoon for Sunday. All right, looking at our sea surface temperatures, they're starting to fall as the air temperatures at night start to come down. We can see here on the Sport SST from NASA, the temperatures are sitting right around the mid to upper 60s. In fact, if we look back at Datascope and look at the water level, the Charleston station is down for our sea surface temperatures. I hope they get that back up running soon, but we can look to our neighbors to the south, Fort Pulaski. We're looking at 66.5 degrees. So that easily means Charleston's right around that vicinity, right around 66 degrees. That's what I'm going to call it for the Charleston area. So the water is definitely cooling down, so get your wetsuits out. And if you're going to go out on it for any period of time, definitely wear a wetsuit, especially with the air temperatures being a little bit cooler tomorrow. Here's our air temperatures for the next 16 days. Looks pretty mild. We're pretty much in a fall pattern right now. We have several areas of high pressure that are going to be dropping down to the area, bringing a couple of cool shots here and there. We're looking at maybe near 40 degrees inland, maybe upper 30s inland tomorrow night, and probably near 50 along the immediate coastline. But you can see the spread of temperatures really isn't that wide, and we have anywhere from 61 to 70 degrees for the next several days to a week or so to go, and no rain in sight except for maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. We may see a coastal low develop to give us a little bit of rain for those 2 days or for at least a small period of time. We're not really sure about that yet. We have to wait and see if something happens along that tail end of the cold front, and we'll talk about that as it happens. One thing I definitely want to mention tonight as we wrap up the Chucktown Wind Report is our high tides. Now we're going into king tides, which starts Sunday and they go all the way through Friday of next week. And we're also moving into a full moon phase, a supermoon phase, the largest supermoon since 1948, and that's because it's called a perigean full moon, where the phase of the moon is closest to the Earth, and it actually the moon is going to be pretty big, to be the closest since 1948, and it actually is going to bring the tides up a little bit more. So if we look at our tidal values, the black line represents the predicted higher than normal tide value. The blue line represents what the predicted actual prediction is. If we get into tonight, overnight tonight, about 4:22 a.m. is our next high tide. This may actually happen a little bit later because of the higher tide, and that's going to reach high astronomical tide value, which that's what this is right here. HAT is high astronomical tide, and we're going to start to see this more throughout the days. It actually gets a little bit higher and higher as we get into Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday during the afternoon hours. Now, that doesn't mean that these numbers will come true. It just means that it's very, very possible, and without a strong northeast wedge in place, we might get lucky and not see too high values on those. So we're still looking at some shallow coastal flooding for those known areas like Lockwood Boulevard, Long Point Road. Any of those known spots that flood, you can expect them to flood. Downtown Charleston's also suspect for becoming a flood zone, so be on the lookout for that. Just keep an eye on the social media and social feed for what's closing down. I know Charleston PD has Twitter feed, so does Isle of Palms, all these other municipalities. They definitely have Twitter feeds if you're into that. They also have Facebook pages that they occasionally post road closures on. So keep an eye on those. That's going to do it for this edition of the Chucktown Wind Report, and thanks for watching. Have a good night.